Look around. Everywhere these days, people are crying out for effective leadership. There's no mistaking it any longer. Men, especially leaders, are struggling, emasculated by imposed rules, stereotyping, and leadership models that are no longer working. There are many women who are doing a much better job at leadership than the men, and we need to recognize them. We need their help too. Welcome to W.E.L.L., the Women's Expressions on Leadership, Learning, and Liberty podcast show, and I'm its host, John Krotek. This is the show where women can help us men to be better men, more effective leaders. We have a phenomenal guest today on the podcast show. She is actually met her a couple of months ago, and I had the honor to be on her show, Shannon Confidential. Her name is Shannon Pinkosky.
Yes, it is.
And it's awesome. I didn't want to mess it up because I know how my name gets messed up sometimes. But, you know, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before we get into this discussion about leadership. She is a bona fide and certified adrenaline junkie. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And she's also a great lover of American football.
Yes.
In fact, she loved football and still does so much. And she wanted to get down on the field closer to the action. And so that's exactly what Shannon did. She ended up becoming a Miami Dolphins cheerleader. And she did that for 3 years. Must have been a lot of fun. Of course, my mom's from Miami, and I remember I was raised on Dolphin football. So that must have been awesome.
Incredible.
Fact, you know, Don Shula's daughter, one of his daughters, was actually a little sister in our fraternity up at FSU. So That's a small world. So she cheered on the sidelines for the famous Miami Dolphins, and she had a lot of fun. She also got her scuba diving certification, did some night dives and some deep dives, and, you know, more hair-raising experiences, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So she goes from the deep ocean depths to the heights and gets involved in skydiving as well. And then we just had a little discussion before we came on here about the Tail of the Dragon, which is a motorcycle ride up south of Maryville, Tennessee. And I'm not sure how many turns and it has, but Shannon didn't do it just once. She went down, but she went back up and she did it twice. Yes. And so there you have it. You know, she's always looking for that, pushing the envelope, but also in a very controlled way. You know, she pushes the envelope, but she knows what she's doing. She's not that crazy. But one thing she says she never, yeah, well, we'll talk about that. But, you know, she never gives up on herself. And after she's done all of these things, she went back to college in her 40s, no less, and graduated with high honors, obtaining an Associate of Science degree in crime scene technology, where she focused on crime scene forensics. That's pretty interesting. It's quite obvious that she's a leader in her own right. In fact, her knowledge in crime scene forensics allowed her the opportunity to be a member of FEMORS, the Florida Emergency Mortuary Operations Response System. FEMORS, again, was created to serve the needs of the state of Florida during any mass fatality event. So thank you for that. That's pretty cool. Thing about Shannon is she has always enjoyed sharing her life experiences, and like the movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly Ones, hoping that her experiences and the way she describes them can help benefit others. Now, I mentioned her podcast show, Shannon Confidential. So, you know, it's not surprising that she's decided to have her own podcast show and to have guests on, where I was humbled and honored to be there, but to tell their own stories in a way that could help others. She's also very much in tune with the masculine and feminine leadership, I guess, conversation. And we've had a little bit of discussion about that. We're going to talk about that today. But whatever she's involved in, this lady is a leader. She's brave. She's courageous. She's a controlled risk taker, and she wants to make the world a better place. And I say hallelujah and welcome to the show, Shannon. Again, I'm humbled and honored to have you now on the other side of the conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Well, we just told your whole life story in about 45 seconds, but let's go back. I know that you've been in Florida most of your life until recently.
Yeah.
Tell us about your upbringing and what created the Shannon that I just described.
Honestly, first, let me thank you. I'm just absolutely honored to be one of the guests on W.E.L.L. and the first season. So thank you. I'm honored. And as far as what made me me, I've asked myself that quite a few times. My upbringing was normal. I had an amazing family. We are so perfectly dysfunctional. I wouldn't trade one of them. I have an older brother, then there's me, a sister younger than me, and then I call him my baby brother, but he's an amazing man as well. And we just grew up in the neighborhood where you were outside, you played, you stuck up for each other, you kind of old school, you defended your family if someone messed with them. And trust me, my older brother did that quite often for me and my sister. My father worked, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. She worked sometimes. We just had a very normal, average childhood, but we were also very supported by our families. We were athletic. We were never told we couldn't do something. We just had a great upbringing.
That's awesome.
I guess I was never taught to fear anything, so we never did, and nobody in my family does.
Well, that's cool. When you think about it, well, there you have. Fear is a big. It holds a lot of people back, and it's obvious if you're diving and jumping out of airplanes and involved in the action of football down on the field, and even getting involved in forensics. All of that stuff is fearless. In fact, that may be one of the credentials of leadership is to have that emotion or that behavior deep down inside. So there you have it. So your family was a tight family unit. Your dad was a great example of somebody that took care of his family and was responsible. And we see so many broken families these days that don't quite have the experience that you had. But tell us about your dad. You told us a little bit, but tell us about, what did you see in him?
Well, and I could talk about my mom and dad in the same aspect, because even though my dad, he was a firefighter, paramedic, and he had his own tile company, but my mom was just equally as strong. So they were side by side. I looked up to both of them. Even though my mom may not have been the sole income person, she was, right there at the top of the family. The one thing they did do was teach us the value of $1. If we wanted to go out with friends, if we needed gas money, if we, whatever, we were putting chemicals in the pool, mowing the lawn, folding the laundry, even though my mom didn't think we did it often enough. We had to earn it. We didn't have an allowance or anything like that. But they definitely let us know the value of $1 and how hard you had to work to get it. And if we were out one night a little bit late and maybe a little hungover, Dad made us go lay tile the next day. So at the very least, I can lay a beautiful floor. I still have that capability. But I learned the value of $1 from my dad and working for him 100%. And learning from my mom was, she's so damn strong. My grandmother was strong. She was fearless. And if she said something in the house had to get done, you did it. You didn't mess with my mom.
Well, that's all, again, ethics, we're talking about ethics here, and you had brother and dad with a great example and a mom who was a great example. As you grew older, what was your understanding of guys? I mean, and what did you see and what did you think made a guy, virtuous?
Well, speaking of my father was like my best cheerleader. He loved, I was a travel soccer player. He just loved, he was always on the sidelines, always encouraging, just big supporter of me athletically. My older brother was the protector. I don't even think anybody really wanted to date me because I had a crazy older brother. So I grew up feeling very protected and cheered on. But that kind of came from two different men in my life, where my brother was huge. I remember one time there was a boy that did come to the house, and he honked for me to pick me up on a date. And my brother found out that, I was going out on a date that night. And he gets ultra protective. Well, he went outside and pulled that boy out of the car through the driver's window and said, "Don't you dare honk for my sister." And said, "I'm going to go back inside, come to the door, and you come get her." So he was that kind of brother, So I learned that men step up and protect and look out for their families, for their sisters. And I've watched him now do that as a grown man for, his own family.
What a great example. So the guy, did he end up coming to the door?
He did. And it was probably the last time he ever took me out.
Probably. There's the fear factor right there. We're talking about the fear, but what a great older brother to have. And that points something out about, again, ethics again, and protection of, it's not that ladies can't handle themselves, but it's nice to have somebody like that who's that close to set that example and step up when you need him to. And that guy probably still remembers. I don't know we won't bring him up, but he probably still remembers that. And if I was a guy and that happened, I would have learned some type of lesson that women, girls, ladies need to be respected. And that if that guy will do that, then this guy has to be some special person for sure. Yeah. Well, that's a great story. I've never heard that before. I don't want to even mess with your brother, but that's great.
Not when it comes to his family. Don't even try.
Well, that's we mentioned family with teamwork, and those are some of the things that leaders need to pay attention to. So when did so you're raised in a household that's normal, and you have a great family atmosphere, and you feel protected and you feel respected, and somebody that's your cheerleader, your own cheerleader, your dad. And so you carry these on into young adulthood, and tell us a little bit about the Miami Dolphins. How did that go down, and what was that experience like?
Well, it is, first of all, it was one of the most incredible experiences, I will say, of my entire life. And you're in the military, so I can't compare it to that. The only thing I can tell you is my experience. I've never been, it's so disciplined and so regimented and so many rules. There were so many things I learned about me through how difficult cheering was. Was it spectacular? Absolutely. I have the most amazing sisterhood that still is wrapped around me today from the women I cheered with. It was an absolutely incredible experience, but it was hard, and you had requirements, and you could not waver. And I mean, there was such a strict regimen as far as practice, appearance, how you looked, how you cheered, showing up on time. You show up 15 minutes early for something, you're already late. It was so regimented. And those skills, writing handwritten notes and thank yous, signing posters, greeting people, taking photos, doing it with such sincerity, and showing so much respect to the fans. It's really an incredible amount of work.
So the fans see the glitz and the glamour. I mean, a lot of us have watched cheerleaders from various teams, and everybody knows the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and you don't really realize it's not just glitz and glamour. It's hard work, and it's not all playtime. Can you think of one game that sticks out of all the games that you cheered at, that you really felt like maybe you took it all in and you looked around and you go, holy cow, this is real? Can you think of it, or were they all like that?
I was going to say, for the sake of sounding completely corny, they were all like that. Every game was different. Every group of fans is different. There were certain incidents that might have it at this game or that game, that might have been different, but the overall feeling, I just loved it so much that every single time we ran out for a pregame show or on the sidelines, it was like the first game over and over and over again. It was just so darn exciting.
So even with all the hard work that you just described, I mean, it was fun. It made the game day all worth it.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun. And I had, I have to say, I have some pretty thick skin. So I didn't get caught up in the competition. Yes, there's appearances and, you get paid to go places and sign autographs and be in commercials and things like that. Not every girl gets to do everything. And there's a calendar and not every girl makes the calendar. So there is a lot of competition within. But if you don't get caught up in it, you don't let your ego get a little too crazy and you get some thick skin and just let that stuff slide right off your back. It was a blast.
Thanks for describing that. What I'm trying to draw out here is that, the characteristics of leadership. And so far what we've discussed, you're definitely drawing them all out. There's a lot here. So thank you for describing that. So cheerleading, a lot of fun, a lot of work, not all fun and games, but well worth it.
Yeah.
And so that drive is what I'm getting at. So then tell us about the scuba diving. What was going on with the scuba diving and then the skydiving?
Just one of those things. I came to a point in my life where, I was previously married and we parted ways. And the gentleman that came into my life, Matthew, was basically my opposite in a man. Like all of his interests, all of the things he loved to do were all the things I've always wanted to do, but never had anybody to do them with. And then suddenly here is this incredible, incredible man that I had, like, the universe brought me, and we were able to do these things together because we had such similar interests. And I had felt at that point, here I am an adult. I already had 2 children. I want the second half of my life to get it right. And I wanted to start doing the things that I really wanted to do and not always put everything on the back burner simply because someone else didn't like it. And I just, that's not me. That just isn't my character. I just want to do something. I'm going to do it and I'll share it and enjoy it. And so that provided the opportunity. He was a diver and he knew how badly I wanted to get my license. So he said, let's go, let's do it. And so we did. And I went back and got my certification with him. He was recertified. He's military as well. And so he was all ready to jump in. The one thing he didn't do was skydive. That he stayed on the ground and took photos, but he had no interest in that whatsoever. Actually laughed at me, but I wanted to do it, so I did. It's that simple.
Yeah, skydiving is kind of interesting. I had the opportunity to do that. I won one of those things where you put the money in the till, and I won a skydive jump. And it was interesting. It got real quiet when that chute opened, but when it was rushing, it was like you had to scream and yell, as you well know.
Isn't that the one thing that I wasn't expecting? Is the silence, and it was beautiful. Like I was up there with the birds, and there's the only thing you hear once the chute opens and you slow down and just get that nice little whistle past your ears. It's so quiet and it's never sounded so beautiful.
But you remember stepping out of the door the first time and you're probably wondering, what am I doing here? You're looking directly down. We jumped out over the Gulf and made our way back inland. And it was kind of interesting. I thought, are we going to crash in the water? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there was that. I had a split second when I thought, I don't know if I can jump. I don't know if I can do this. And then it was like, damn straight, you're going to do this. You're not afraid of anything. Out I went.
That's great. I love hearing that story, and thanks for sharing that. But one thing that I'm starting to formulate in my mind is you're you. And what's interesting about how you've blossomed, as you've gone on and put these, steps on, these rungs in your ladder of life, so to speak, you've realized that it's okay to be you. And you've it's not selfish. And that's something that people who are listening need to realize, that that when you're you're giving the world the authenticity that it needs to have. And that's part of leadership. And that's what I was saying, like, you're grateful to be on the show, but I'm grateful to have you because you've exemplified these leadership traits. And as we start to talk about them, we start to see where they come from. Fearless, teamwork, valuing yourself. Even though there's glitz and glamour all around you, there's an underside too that shows the hard work that goes into that. We can't always judge a book by its cover. It's not easy for any of us. We earn these things, and we go out and we make them happen. The forensics thing interests me because that is like, So you're doing these, you're going out, you're getting it, you're grasping life, it's kind of, I married a lady with 2 kids from a previous marriage. So I understand that, the redo and actually putting more into it. Tell us about why forensics? What's the interest there? Tell me that.
I have always, and I can go back for as being just a beginning in my teenage years. I always wanted to be a detective. I wanted to be an FBI agent, and this was before the term CSI even existed. There wasn't a show, there wasn't anything. You were an agent, and I always wanted to do that. And I remember my father, he set me up to talk with another soccer dad who was an FBI agent. And that's how I would think. I was 15 at the time, just to pick his brain. And at the time, for whatever reason, I can't even recall, but there was math, algebra, you had to go through math in college, and math has been my nemesis. I can't stand it. I hate it. I see numbers backwards. It just drives me batty, just absolutely batty. So I kind of, at 15, almost put it like out of my mind, because I thought, well, I'll never get through college math. I hate math. So I kind of put it off to the side, but it was never, ever, ever off my mind. I wanted to be an FBI agent. And then as time went on, crime scene investigation and technology became an actual thing. And it became a career. It became a job. It could be, all of a sudden now we've got shows about it. And I have 2 kids, and, my son went to college, and my daughter didn't know, where she wanted to, put all of her talents. And I thought, here I am telling my kids, go to school, get a degree, try to earn knowledge, education, so you can make more money. Yet I never went. And I just believe, you got to practice what you preach. And I thought, well, there's really no reason I didn't go back and even just go to just graduate. Here I am telling people they should do this, but I haven't. And I felt hypocrite. I was a hypocrite to my own kids. So I thought, you know what? There's nothing stopping me but me. I'm going back. And I talked about it with Matthew. I was working full time, so it was extremely hard. I did it at night or online, depending on, what they offered. Mm-hmm. And went back to school and earned my college degree. And I actually did it doing the one thing I've always wanted to do. And that was crime. Then it turned into crime scene investigation, crime scene forensics. And I have to tell you, my brain was on fire. It was just the right time for me to go back. And I am so proud of me.
Yeah, congratulations. I would be too. And it's not easy to go back to school. I remember when I was in school at an earlier age, but I remember people that were in their 40s and 50s. And I always thought, wonder why they're back in school. Is it really that tough on the outside? But, there you go. You're a person of ethics, and you didn't want to be a hypocrite telling people that they needed to do that when you hadn't done it yourself. But yeah. The subject matter itself, is pretty interesting. Is there any cases there that stand out that you can share where you were able to put all your brain power to work? Maybe something that you all solved together? Or
not so much solved. It's just what I've learned and what I see now. If I see, I'm not working in the field. I do have a second podcast, Forensic Fridays, where I have 2 of my professors that I was taught under are my co-hosts, and we go through, different cases, cold cases, or different forensic processes to, bring it to people, give our insight, give it the way we look at it through our eyes. One's a forensic scientist, another one's a forensic anthropologist, and a current CSI, and the other is currently a professor. So what we do is we look at cases through our knowledge and our insight. And what I did gain from going to school and learning under the most incredible people was looking at crime scenes, looking at cases, looking at evidence so differently when you're looking at it through scientific eyes. And that to me is so exciting.
It sounds exciting. I don't know if I ever want to be an FBI agent, but my wife always said, you should have been a cop, because when you're watching some of these shows, it's interesting. But so, when I'm thinking about Shannon, I'm thinking about an ethical foundation. I'm thinking about a serious go-getter, somebody who is motivated, somebody who is inspired to live dreams, somebody who is inspired to be better, to gain more knowledge, but also somebody who, like you said at the outset, is fearless, right? So all these great qualities of leadership you've exemplified throughout your entire life,
Thank you.
with a firm foundation. Well, you're welcome. You deserve that because you earned that. And the story here is about, or the discussion is about you, but it's also about leadership, and it's about men filling the roles that they know they can fill, and maybe some of them haven't. Why do you think, when we look around these days, that men might be struggling with leadership roles? Because I'm hearing it more and more that guys need to step up. Why aren't we stepping up? And it's not a new discussion. We can read between the lines, Shannon, and we can see that people are talking about this. What's that song that my wife loves? It's called "Where Have All the Cowboys Gone?" I don't know if you've heard that song, but it's, and where have all the cowboys gone? Why do you think men are struggling? I know it's rhetorical, and I know there's probably a million answers, but why do you think?
I honestly, fundamentally, it goes back to, it comes from the parents, and then down and down and down. And if you're not teaching your sons ethics and being respectful, and how to respect women, and how to work hard, and how to know the value of a dollar, all of those things matter. If you're not teaching that, it's lost for that generation. And if that generation never heard it, was never taught it, it's going to be lost in the next generation. And I've just seen over time, little by little by little by little, of that ethics, those morals, those values, those respect levels, that working hard means something. All those old school ways that worked have slowly and surely decreased through the fundamentals of being taught in the family. Getting stuff easy instead of working, finding the easy way out instead of working harder, asking for money rather than earning it. Maybe not teaching your son to open up car doors and help somebody with bags, or if you're on a bus or any form of transportation, to get up if there's a woman that needs to sit down. Those are things that are taught, and it just seems to have stopped. And if you can't do the basics of just respect, how can you do what it really takes if you don't even have your foundation?
Yeah, great question. I was talking to a lady the other day, and she was telling me about how she was on a plane, and she was putting her bag in her overhead, above the seats, and she was struggling to get it in there. And there are all these guys sitting around, but it was an 85-year-old man who got up 3 or 4 seats away, who came over and helped her put the bag in. And she said to the man, it's nice to know that chivalry still exists. And the guy that was sitting there that could have jumped up and helped her, he goes, "What chivalry?" I mean, he's like in his mid-40s, and she was blown away by that.
It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And that's just the niceties. I know how to use tools. As much as this is not about me, what I am shocked is how many men these days don't even know how to use a saw. Or, I was cutting tile on a water saw using nippers. My dad taught me and I learned, but we didn't leave the driveway until we knew we could change a flat tire, so we were safe on the side of the road. There are so many men that I know that don't even know how to change a tire or hang a lamp, a fan. Just that. And I'm not saying you have to be an electrician or you have to know all those things, but there's just a disconnect that, they just don't even own tools. It's, how do you not own tools?
It's a great question, because I was lucky, I guess, too, because I had a dad that taught me all those things. I learned how to work on cars and lay bricks and do things in the yard, and how to dig in irrigation and all those things. But what you've pointed out, and I think it's great, Shannon, is responsibility starts in the home. And if you're the male figure in a home and you have children, or whatever the situation is, it's important for you to impart your knowledge. We're talking about leadership learning, and liberty, freedom, because those leadership traits that you learn can give you the ultimate freedom. It can be the greatest form of liberty education that you'll ever get.
Yeah.
Like the way you described that, because so we've got this lineage, we raise a family and then they raise a family, and it goes on and on and on, and it's slowly been watered down. I get the sense that you don't think it's too late, that anybody can make a choice to improve their lives at any time.
And you just nailed it. It's a choice. It's a choice. You choose whether or not you're going to work hard. No one tells you you're not going to work hard. That's a choice. And if you're not working hard, and if you're not, doing everything you can to contribute to your family, yourself, society, it's because you and you alone have chosen not to. And that's your fault.
Yeah,
Nobody
I agree.
else.
I agree with you. Personal responsibility. I had two older sisters and a younger brother, and both of my sisters were, they were pretty. They were cheerleaders in high school, and they were also go-getters. And I learned a lot from having two older sisters, because I learned to understand what girls go through. And I also learned about the respect that comes along with that. And my dad was very protective. I wasn't an older brother. When I got old enough, then it was different, but he was always looking out for my sisters. And so I kind of learned, very much similar to you, that there is this responsibility as a parent. I think that's awesome. But in today's day and age, and I know for a fact that you are living proof, but so are millions of other women, that women are quite capable. They don't have, they can pick up, they can cut tile, they can jump out of airplanes. There's no doubting that they can do whatever they want to do. But there's also, without provoking the bear, there's also, we need help. And what can women do to help men be better men? Because, we've seen this in shows. They've made fun of it. You're nagging me all the time. And guys can lose heart too. It's not like we're not invincible. What can women do to help men when we're struggling?
Support. Don't condemn, support. If someone's having a hard time, talk, communicate, why, work through it, support. Men and women need to support each other. Women need to support their significant others. Everybody thinks men have to be strong and tough and fearless. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with being strong and tough and fearless, but you're also human, and you might have weaknesses, or you might have fears. Think about it. If men have to think that they have to be the sole income, they have to be the provider, there's a lot of pressure in that. And I have to think that mental pressure to be the one that handles it all, that's strong and tough and can do everything and pays all the bills, that there's an immense amount of pressure. And women need to realize that and support that pressure and help, step up yourself, give them some credit. Don't just beat a man down, build them up. So that's the first thing women could do, is support the men that they love, and let them know that if they are afraid of something, or having, I don't know, maybe they hate their job and they want to go to a different job, but are too afraid to make that change. Maybe help them, maybe back them, maybe tell them, it's okay to be afraid, but you can do it. I just support.
That's great. And support, it comes in so many ways too. And that's the good thing about conversation, is we could draw upon these experiences and these tips, and we can put them into our own lives. I read the other day where if you could violate relationship codes. Like if you are mean and you don't support, you're violating the code of collaboration, or maybe what I would even say is the code of love. And not necessarily the love that's endorsed by the world, but more of the divine kind of love. And I tell guys all the time, pulling the sword out is the last resort. We can still be kind. And I say it's up to men to maybe put the kind back into mankind, because if we don't do it, then we're not being responsible human beings. We can't, ladies have it tough enough with childbearing. I probably get slapped around here, but they have it tough enough. We need to pick up the gauntlet and be men and not be full of hate or vitriol or weakness. We need to be strong, and we can be if we choose to be.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I just don't know. I'm really having a hard time in society today where I don't know. Everybody's just trying to be like some other title. Just be a man, be a woman. I'm just not getting where you have to just somehow be something you're not because someone else said a title and you think you need to live because someone else has an opinion. Live by your own.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it, that's probably some of the best advice we've gotten here today. Be yourself, be brave, be who you want to be, and quit worrying about what other people are saying. And people, I come from a different angle. We talked a little bit about it when we were on your show, but the angle that of thermodynamics, that the world is always in chaos. There's always confusion going on. And to me, the reason why, from a human point of view, is because of this self-hatred. And when we don't necessarily live up to our own expectations of who we think we need to be or truly are, then we do get frustrated and we see the world. That's the end result. We see the world the way it is. But if we truly loved ourselves, and we can do this, guys, if we truly loved ourselves, then we'll wear this cloak and this aura of love, and people will feel that.
Yes. And it makes you a nicer, kinder person.
Yeah. And I know that guys, they think that, that being, it's cool to be macho. And this show is not to bash guys at all. It's to recognize lady leaders and what we can learn from them. We don't have to be macho 24/7. Society might think so, but maybe humanity doesn't think so. If that makes any sense. But
yeah,
that's you pointed out a lot of great things here today. So these
and the one thing I really want to stress too with men, that because of they don't ever want to be perceived as weak, that if they are having trouble or they are, mental health is so huge right now, that just because something they are having troubles, admitting that is courageous. It's not weak. Admitting that you need help with something or something's affecting you emotionally. Men need to realize that admitting it is incredibly courageous, incredibly strong. And you can't be at your best until you admit to yourself first where there might be something lacking. And then you can step up and fix that issue. So you no longer have that lacking anymore and you're stronger and better for it. And they should not be afraid. That I find incredibly powerful when you can self-reflect, find something that's not so quite right with you and work to improve it. That's huge.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. That is huge. One thing too that you've made me think about was these historically feminine roles like nurturance and kindness and loyalty to family and servitude at times. And those don't necessarily have to be all female roles. Wayne Dyer says that the men who can embrace the feminine nature of their personalities are more complete. And when you nurture and you show affection and you're loyal to your family and you teach your kids values and ethics, you're not being weak. You're filling the role of a complete person and a complete man. And so I am so glad you pointed that out, that in weakness, it's so cliche, and weakness is strength, but it's true.
Yes. It takes a lot of courage to admit you're doing something wrong. Most people would rather ignore it or pretend that they're not. So to admit anything, male or female, but men have a harder time with it, is to me a sign of strength.
That's awesome. And the thing too is that another thing that you pointed out that I've gleaned from this is that there's teamwork involved. And you mentioned ego once, I think, but the ego doesn't have to be involved. I think that how you pointed out and said support means collaboration. It means empathy. It means a true desire and compassion for that person that you're there with. All great qualities of leadership. And when we exercise those, I know you and I know your heart, the world truly is a better place. Let me ask you this. Do you have like a personal mantra, like your own quote, or maybe that of another that you live by every day?
Yes.
Somehow I knew
Better
you did.
tomorrow than I was today.
That's awesome. So always on the road of self-improvement, which is another leadership trait. See, there's a lot here if you read between the lines, but that's a great quote. How can people find out, Shannon, more about you and how they can learn more about your podcast shows and how they can get in touch with you if they need to ask you a question or they want more information?
All of my podcasts are on shannonconfidential.com. That's my website. My Forensic Friday and my Shannon Confidential podcasts are there. They can email me at shannonconfidential007@gmail.com. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. But between the website and my email address, you'll find everything Shannon.
No, that's great. And thanks for sharing that information. All I can say is that, we've gotten a lot out of this conversation today. Responsibility, family, value of money, teamwork, protection, the hard work behind the glitz and glamour, the releasing of the ego, a lot here, being motivated, a go-getter, fill your shoes, be who you are, and have no regrets. And if anybody is listening, and we know you are, all the things that Shannon shared today is not only going to make your life better, but it's going to make the life better for those around you who love and support you. And in turn, it will make the world a much better place.
I believe that.
Yeah, Shannon, it's true. And because you're here, the world is better. And working together, collaboration, it's true. And well, you're welcome. And like I say, what I liked, another thing you said, and asking for money rather than earning it. We didn't talk too much about that, but that's a real good point. And when you earn these dollars with your own sweat of your brow, it's a confidence builder.
It feels great.
Yeah, it does. So is there anything that you think we missed today, and any parting shot that you'd like to say, Shannon, to the men and the ladies who are listening?
Come together, support each other, love one another. Just do that. Life will work itself out.
I love that. There you go, Shannon from Shannon Confidential. I don't want to mess up the name. I always have it's a brain injury thing. That Pinkosky.
Pinkosky, yes.
Pinkosky, and that's a solid name, and you're a solid person. And again, I'm honored to have you here on this show, and can't wait to see it come out. Thank you, Shannon.
Me too. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to another episode of Well. Without you, we don't exist. We hope the men who joined us today learned some valuable tips to improve and not be ashamed to use them. Be the change, set the example, keep going, men. And for the women leaders out there, keep creating and keep helping us men to become even better men, more effective leaders. Thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and lead.